Friday. Glad you stopped by. Today we're going to talk about when somebody copies your work, or what to do when somebody copies your work, or did they really copy your work. This is going to have a little bit of different viewpoint, perspective, I guess, than some of the videos. I know there are other videos on YouTube about copyright infringement and so forth, and we'll talk about that a little bit. But the first step is you have to discover for sure, did they really copy your work? And after that, how important is it for you to go forward with any action, like to report it to Etsy or eBay or YouTube or whatever? YouTube, I think if they lift something out of your video, I think YouTube tells you, because we've had some different notices on YouTube, in the back door of our business stuff, where it will tell us, is this okay? Are they allowed to have this? That kind of thing. And we can just tell them no, and then they take care of it. So that's kind of nice. It makes it easy. But before you accuse anybody of anything, you have to think about a lot of different things. How important is the complaint? Because complaints take energy, don't they? They sure do. So and we don't want to embarrass ourselves when we call out somebody either. So the first thing you need to think of is, did they really copy it? In the case of what we do, a piece of jewelry, unless we're making a big line of jewelry where we have paid someone to cast components for it and so forth, that's different. But one piece of jewelry or a few pair of earrings, I don't know. You have to decide. You are the ultimate person to decide. If something like that happens, you could approach the person kindly, professionally. If you need some help to do that, ChatGPT can help you, and I think vidIQ also. There's a lot of different resources these days that can help with that. But really think before you make a big deal of it. It could just be, and I've had this happen a lot, it could just be common use of the product. For example, I sell a lot of brass stampings, as many of you know, and you've used them. Some of them just lend themselves to being used in a particular way, 2 or 3 ways. That's the first thing that's going to come to someone's mind. It's like, I always say, it's out there in the cosmos, So did they really copy it, or did they just come up with the same idea you did? It's possible. They could have. So you want to think about that. Is it worth making the complaint? That could have happened. I had a group a long time ago on Flickr, of all places, and we were talking about copying work. And someone was very disturbed because they found someone embedding little tiny watch parts in resin. You've seen that? And they were very upset because they felt that someone had seen their work and had copied it. The things they made were a little similar, but not exactly. But they felt that they took their idea. Well, ideas are kind of hard to do anything about. I mean, you could ask your lawyer if there's anything that could be done with somebody who took your idea, but can you prove it was your idea? Were you the first one ever to do it? And that's what I said as a leader of the group. I said, well, step back from this a minute and think. Would it ever occur to anybody else to do this? And then I told her, I was doing this 20 years ago. That's just me. And I can prove it. I still have some old earrings that have things like that. I did it a little different way than she did, but it still was embedding watch parts in resin. I said, so, the way you do it is excellent. You do excellent work, no air bubbles or anything like that, but it's a technique that's been done by a lot of people for a lot of years. So, and she was kind of like, oh, didn't think of that, you know? And then there was someone else who was using a cuff flat that we used to sell a lot. I think we still sell some of them, but it was maybe 5.5 inches long by 2 inches wide. And what you did is that you would bend it. You know, I even have videos showing how you can bend that piece with your hands, not even tools. But some people were making cuffs out of them, and then they felt that others were taking their idea. And I said, well, you know, when you look at that piece, doesn't it kind of suggest to you that that's probably what you're going to want to do with it? When I sell it, I oftentimes say that this is very good to be bent into a cuff. And then going forward, I did a lot of videos on it. So no, that can't be copied. That's not an idea that they copied. Now, if they took it and they bent it, and then say that they painted it or patinaed it the same exact way you did, and maybe say they wired on a cameo to the middle and they did exact way you did it, until it came out, you could put them side by side, not know who made it, then you might want to have a discussion with that person. Or you might want to think, are they selling in the same lane I am? Does it really matter? Do I really want to use my energy that way over one design that I'm probably going to make, you know, possibly 8 to 10, 12 of them, and I'm not going to make any more? You know, but yeah, you know, if somebody's copying your stuff exactly, that does not feel good. And you might want to talk to them about it. Another thing you can do to prove that you did it first, that way, not bending the cuff, not throwing the watch parts in resin, but the way you did it, the way you designed the piece, the shape of it and so forth. If they copied that exactly, then that was not very nice of them, and you need to have that discussion with them. And if it doesn't go well and you feel very upset, if you can prove that you were the first one to make it that way, then maybe you can report it to Etsy or eBay or wherever it is that, you know, I think you can report such a thing to Facebook too. But in that case, yeah, even though maybe you're only going to make a short run of them, it's like a big ew factor when somebody, they love your idea. It's kind of a backhanded compliment first, you know, might make you think, well, they liked it enough to copy it. I used to have a friend who was a great mentor to me, and he was an older gentleman, and he had been a criminal attorney. I can't say it, criminal attorney for most of his life. Now he was retired. And once in a while I'd call him and I'd say, you know, what happened, George? This happened, that happened, whatever. And so often he would say to me, Brenda, is this worth your time, effort, energy, and money? Because if you really want to pursue it, you really, really want to pursue it, in some cases, that's what it's going to require. And there'll be a big flap between you and that person, and maybe you are people that many others know. It just puts a bad vibe out there, you know. So, yeah, they're the one that started, but you have to decide what you're going to do about it. And then whatever you decide is your business, and nobody should criticize you for it. But if you have to be able to prove it. So how do you prove it? Well, there's a few things. If you've taken a picture of it and you watermarked the picture, better still, watermarked it with a date, then that proves that's when you made it. Because really, anything we make, guys, it's automatically copyrighted. However, that doesn't mean a whole lot, because when it comes push to shove in a case like this, you have several things you have to prove, or you can't go forward with it. So the biggest thing is get your name on it. Or like, in my case, a lot of times I sign my work with a Dremel. For a long time, I put the date on it. And then someone said to me, well, you don't want to put the date on it because if you still have it, it looks like nobody bought it. I thought, well, there might be something to that. But then on the other hand, hey, maybe it was something that nobody bought because I kept it. It was mine for a long time, and then I got tired of it, and I decided I'll send it on down the line. And if you know me, you know that I do that a lot. So the date on it is actually a protection. So however you get a date on it will be proof. Unless that other person has the same thing, unless they have a copy, unless they have a watermark on theirs or a signature or whatever, that proves they made it at a certain time, and it just turns out to be earlier than you, they've been doing it a little bit longer than you, then you really can't go forward. So there's a lot to consider, and most of it requires a lot of energy. You do have recourse, but you have to figure. I used to call that fellow Uncle George. And what Uncle George would tell me is every time when I talked to him about it, he would say, Brenda, think about it. Step back, think about it really hard. Is this going to be worth my trouble? And what is it going to end up costing me? It could be, in my case, because I'm known, because I have a supply business, and I get around, and I have been on the internet since 1997. It can hurt my business to make a big flap about something. It's a negative, bad vibe. But having said that, there are times you have to risk that. You just have to risk that. And that would be in the case if you're a digital creator of some kind. Like, do you ever go to Etsy and buy the digital downloads, the little pictures and stuff like that you can use? Those are okay for you to use in a body of work. Some people will come right out and say, it's okay for you to use up to, say, 50 of them to create a body of work. But if you're going to make a great big body of work and sell it to stores and all that, you may have to talk to them, and you might have to pay something for the right to do that. But most of them, you'll notice when you go on Etsy and you're looking at stuff to buy, want to get some images, you'll notice they're all watermarked on Etsy. And that's because people will save the image, crop out all the stuff they don't need, and they'll go ahead and use it without paying the creator anything. And this is what they do for a living. This is just wrong, So unless that creator says, on their website at Etsy that they don't care, a few of them do, then maybe it doesn't matter. But you're not going to be able to save the image to file on your computer because they are watermarked. I know there are some vendors who sell supplies who watermark the pictures on their websites. They don't want anybody else saying, oh, I sell that part too, and I just don't feel like taking a picture, so I know so-and-so has this too, they sell. I'm just going to go over and get their picture. Well, a lot of times that can be traced back anyway, so you don't want to do that. You need to take your own pictures. And when it comes to digital downloads and digital books, all that kind of stuff, they are highly protected, and the creators of them are very savvy about how to protect themselves, to keep themselves from, ne'er-do-wells who want to steal their work. And one of the first things you want to do, if that happens, is you want to report it to the platform where they stole it. Most people are using Etsy these days. So Etsy has a link for copyright infringement. And it might take them a little while to get back to you, but they frown on that, and they will do something about it. Or they'll write back and ask you more questions to prove, whatever. eBay has one too. Like I say, YouTube is very sensitive to people that take parts of other people's videos and and use the actual image, whether it be in what they call B-roll, where it's like they have their whole video, like I'm talking to you now, and I know we rarely ever use a B-roll, but that would be just images that you have saved that you might want to insert here and there, just for whatever reason. That's another whole subject. But yeah, that kind of stuff, that's not good. You can report it to the platform first. Actually, you can just talk to the person first, see if they'll respond. Most people, when you talk to them, they'll do something about it right away. I know one time I had a little problem with the company that I bought stuff from, and I know some people that want part of that company, like helpers, assistants in the company, would come to my blog posts and they would lift little bits of it, use my verbiage, stuff like that. And I started noticing it in their advertising. I did not like that. I did not like that. I don't know if you do the same thing as you did back then. Back then, you would approach a lawyer and get a cease and desist letter, and usually that was enough to stop it. But it was always better to take a minute first and approach the person that offended you this way. So I did that. And the gentleman called me. And he said, Brenda, I think that is something like we all call it. It's out there in the cosmos, like common use. Like I just was talking about, it's common use. Anybody could have used that, blah, blah, blah. But I had proof that his minions had been on my page a lot of times. Sometimes they even made comments. So I showed him. And he says, oh. So after that, I didn't see the minions on there anymore. And the problem did not continue. So I talked it out with him. He was a very nice fella. And it all worked out. So a lot of times the first step you want to take is just try to be professional and approach the person in a kindly way. And then if they get all mad, won't listen to you, then you go to the platform. Whatever you need to do. In that case, it was magazine advertising. It was actually magazines that I advertised in too. I could have gone straight to the publishers of the magazine and talked to them, and they would have worked it out. So copyright infringement is a bad, bad thing. Same when you write a book. It needs to be original material. Now, I don't know how that works out now without all the AI stuff that's around there. I have to wonder down the road if people will really write books anymore. I don't know. There are a lot of great things about AI and ChatGPT and stuff like that, and it does amazing things. We use it here once in a while. Javi does. But we're always careful about how it represents us. And I would never write a book with that, because my words are important to me. So I'm going to use my words. But I don't want anybody to lift my words either, Now, let's say that you have a line of whatever it is, and you, whether it's jewelry or whatever, and you have the design sent to China, because most people, that's what they do. It's the cheapest place to be cast. And there are actually a few people in the U.S. who will cast parts for you too. 1928 Jewelry will do it, for example. But they cost a lot more. So a lot of people do Chinese, whatever. But you have to be wary of a couple of things if you do that. In the U.S., you'll sign paperwork. And part of that paperwork will say they will never reproduce that piece for somebody else. And it becomes yours, your model, your mold. As far as China, I don't know. It's kind of hard to get after them. But anyway, but let's say you go through all the money and all the headache of, having this done, and you're making things and you're selling them on the internet. or you're selling to stores or whatever, and here you find people that are copying. Maybe they know a little bit about rubber molding. They've gotten a piece of your stuff, they rubber molded it and actually copied it. It can be done. But it's wrong, 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 and you can make a big stink out of that, and in that case you should. Because this is your livelihood. It's not just an occasional piece of jewelry, it's an integral part of your line. I know when I sold the Bisou 1928 line, and they were the parts that 1928 Jewelry made for me, I had to put on my website that no one was allowed to take them and make, recast them. Not even in resin, not even in a clay mold, nothing. Because it's not, Mr. Bernie did not want that. And one time we found a girl who had bought some of the parts that he sold. I don't know where she got them. She didn't buy them from me, which is surprising because he usually make them for other people. But she got them and she rubber molded them because she knew how, and she was selling them. She was very forthright. She said she made them from old pieces of 1920 jewelry. Well, he saw that and he went after her. And believe me, that's one guy you don't want to go after you. But he's had to do it many times because people do that kind of stuff and they're foolish enough to think they can get away with it. Maybe you'll get away with it for a while, but not in the long run. So anyway, in a case like that, where your livelihood's been jeopardized and here it's gone to the four winds, yeah, you need to do something about it. I know one story I'll tell you before we close today. When I did trade shows, I had a big booth. I had a big double booth, and I had tables going out all along the perimeter of it. And I had the samples down on there so you could pick them up and look at them. Because it was the best way to sell my jewelry to stores, to their buyers. So this fella came along. And normally, if you're a vendor in a trade show, you must not enter the booth of some other company unless they invite you. Because stuff happens. Well, this guy didn't come in my booth, but he just skirted along the edges. And I hadn't thought about somebody might do that, so after that I had to change my plan. But he was skirted along, he was taking pictures, but mostly he was sketching, drawing pictures. So I didn't like that. I got a bad feeling about that. And I walked up to him and I said, what are you doing? These are original designs. He says, oh, don't worry about it, lady. It'll be in Chinese. It'll be in China and knocked off in 48 hours. That's what he said. Don't worry about it, lady. It'll be knocked off in China in 48 hours. And I just thought to myself, have fun with that. Because they're all made individually. Because I did assemblage. Have fun with that. That piece you make is not going to have any heart and soul. Because when you do assemblage, especially if I've taught you how to do it, your pieces have a little bit of you in them. Anything I saw that was assemblage that came from mass produced, it just didn't work out that good. You could just see that it was all down the line, So, in the long run, you're the one that has to decide whether or not it's worth it to take action. But be sure when you start, is it really copied? Or is this common use of the product? So often, it could be common use of the product. If not, and you find somebody really is copying you, then you could report to the platform. Or say you're doing shows, and somebody has come into the show and they're making something really similar to yours or almost exactly. They talk to show promoter about it. They could go around and see what's going on. But it's up to you in the long run. But be sure it's really being copied and it doesn't go just to the common use of the product. I hope this has helped you. It gets a little confusing sometimes, doesn't it? But I saw a video here not long ago. If you want to look it up, I think that she discussed the more of the legal ins and outs better than I did. Now, I'm not a lawyer, so what do I know? I had a friend who was a lawyer, but I'm not a lawyer, and she says the same thing. But anyway, the name of the video is How to Protect Your Art from Being Stolen Online, and it's by a creator called Every Tuesday. I think they got that right. And she discusses very quickly and succinctly what to do, but she stresses, first of all, be sure that your name is on there and it's dated. And you're probably going to be good to go. You can prove it. Okay, guys, that's my opinion. Let's hear yours. I don't care if you disagree with me, that's fine. Or if you want to tell your stories of woe, that's fine. We've all got them. Go ahead, let's have a discussion. I'd love to see your comments. I'd love to see what you have to think about it. But yeah, if you need some help with this, I would definitely look at her video because it's really well done. Okay, there are probably others out there. I just think I had a little different perspective because I spoke first. Is it really copied? And you have to think about that. And then you have to think about your energy level and what you are willing to devote to going after the person. How necessary is it? Okay, that's what I had to say today. I hope I'll hear your comments. And we'll be back next week with something else. So we'll see you. Happy Friday. You've been great.